Hello and welcome to the Kirsty Knits and Sews podcast. My name is Kirsty and I'm coming to you from Rzeszów in Poland, where I have lived for almost exactly 1 year now. Welcome if this is your first time. Thank you for popping by. I hope you have a cuppa and some knitting or something crafty to do while you listen in. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you. Subscribers, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and it is exciting to see more and more people joining us here on the Kirsty Knits and Sews podcast. This morning I'm drinking tea, my usual, except this is a special tea and cup. The cup and the tea were both gifts because I have been living in Poland for a year. And so these were congratulations, you made it through your first year living in a new country gifts. The tea I think is Harney and Sons or Harley and Sons. In London, Fog is the flavour. So delicious. And the cup, I couldn't tell you where it's from or any information, not even a brand. But it's beautiful and I love it. And it was a lovely gift. And that is still very hot. So, like I said, welcome. I have a lot to talk about today. It has been about a month since I last podcasted because I went away on holidays and then last week my kids were sick. So it has been 4 weeks since I last recorded. So thanks for joining. I'm going to jump right in because there is a lot to get through today. I have 7 finished objects to show you. 7. I have been gone for a month, so that explains it, but 7. Whew. Plus the whips and acquisitions because I've been to a knitting festival, and I'll talk about extra things in chatter at the end. So let's jump in. The first finished object, which hang on, I should tell you where you can find me. Obviously you can find me here on YouTube as Kirsty Knits and Sews, but you can also find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Kirsty Knits and Sews. So I will put links to everything below, and anything I talk about today has or very soon will have a project page. Finished objects have. There's a couple of others that don't, that I'm about to cast on, but they will have project pages on Ravelry, which I will also link below. Shops that I talk about, I will link below, dyers, all of that. So anything, if you want more information, you can either go to Ravelry or you can check out direct links below if you remember who they were. Anything else? No, now we can jump in. All right, first finished object. You will probably have noticed if you've been here before that I am wearing my sea glass sweater. It is no longer a whip, it is finished. Knocking things over already. So this is my sea glass sweater. I absolutely love it. It is warm and comfortable. This is the first time I've worn it because I have children and I didn't want them to cover it with stuff. But I absolutely love it. I'm not sure if I can stand back enough. There we go. So I did make it a little bit more cropped than it said in the pattern. I just tried it on and really liked the length, so I kept it there. You can see the seaming down the side here and in the center on the back. And underneath the arms, you can see that side seam goes down there on both arms. I did the magic knot method. All right, so let's start from the beginning. This is the sea glass sweater. It is a pattern by Wool and Pine Designs. It came out this year, I believe, and kind of caused a amazing knitting frenzy. It is the whole thing 1 by 1 color work. Obviously, it's a yoke with increases in the yoke. You split for the sleeves, so it is a top down. And at the back, that is where the seam is for the top until you split for the sleeves, and then it moves to the side. I actually finished this sweater in 6 weeks from when I cast it on August 1st to when I finished it, which was September 12th. So it was about 6 weeks from start to finish for this entire sweater. And I'm amazed that I did it that fast, but it was my evening knit and I actually found it quite relaxing. yeah. Oh, I will also mention I'm trying something different with sound today. I'm doing it through headphones and have done things because some people are finding it hard to hear. So if the sound is better, yay. Let me know. If it's still hard to hear, please let me know and I'll see what I can do about that. Maybe I'll have to get a different mic if this isn't working. So, sea glass sweater. I did the size, I think I did size 4. I'm pretty sure it was 46 inches positive ease with, 46 inches in the bust, and that will be about 6 to 7 inches positive ease on me at the moment. Obviously, that changes throughout the year and throughout the month. And I liked about this pattern that Wool & Pine did some fitting videos and stuff, which this is still lower. I should have probably split for the sleeves about this black line according to the fit video. So if I did it again, I would split for the sleeves earlier, and that would mean that maybe I'd lose my last increase or something like that with my gauge, or I'd split directly after my last increase. But other than that, the fit is pretty great. I did also pick up some extra stitches under the sleeves because I know that for any kind of fitted sleeve, my arms tend to be bigger than my chest measurement is required or expected to be. So I just usually pick up some extra stitches for fitted sleeves. And I just did that when I was picking up stitches and made the sleeves the equivalent of one size bigger. The other thing I did, jumping into acquisitions for a minute, is I got some Knit Pro Zing DPNs in 5.5 millimeter. So I could do the sleeves on DPN 2 at a time. And that actually worked brilliantly because it meant that I could, as soon as I did 2 rows on one side, go and do the same 2 rows on the other side. I didn't have to worry about swapping out needles to do that. And yeah, because I knew that I was working on both sleeves at the same time, and when they were done, they actually went really quickly. I was also on holidays, that helped. But it was really motivating because I knew that when one sleeve was done, the sweater was done. And yeah, it meant it was simple. It was a little bit more finicky to sit down and do that, but when you're changing colors, when you're changing both colors every round, it's not much more finicky, and it's less finicky than going back and trying to color match again afterwards. It is a scrappy sweater. I don't know if I mentioned that. The only color that is not scraps was this blue, which is a Daffodil Road sock DK. Excuse me. Which I was saving for socks, but I decided to use here because I really liked the color, and I'm so glad I did. And in terms of needles, I think it recommended a 4mm for cuffs and maybe a 4.5 for the color work. And so when I gauge swatched, I went straight to a 5 for the color work because I knew my color work was tight, and that was still too small. So I actually did the color work in a 5.5mm. And I think that meant my gauge lengthwise was out, so I adjusted that accordingly. And it's a mix of acrylic, wool, polyester, cashmere, nylon. Like, it's just kind of everything in this sweater. So it didn't stretch as much as a normal superwash would, but I am very happy with everything about it. Like I said, except I would have liked it to have split slightly earlier, but that was my own fault. I was past where I should have split for my personal measurements before I tried it on, and I wasn't going to rip back even 5 rows of one by one color work. So that was my choice, and I am quite happy with it. There are, in the pattern, different color work options. I chose completely scrappy, so every row both colors change. Some people only change one color and hold one color throughout. Every row I changed every color. The only thing I did was I separated my yarns into lights and darks, or lighters and darkers, and I would hold, like I would alternate. So every row is a light and a dark, but every column should also be light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And so that gives it some kind of uniformity. And when I was reaching for yarns, I tried not to reach for the same one too often. And I tried to, and if I had like a section with a lot of blue or a lot of cool tones, I'd try and bring a warm tone. If I had a section with a lot of warm tones, I'd try and reach for a cool tone. But overall, it was very much just reach and grab. And then when I came to the sleeves, if I do that, they line up pretty well. When I came to the sleeves, I was actually picking the yarn that I'd used in the body to use in the sleeve. And if for some reason I didn't have that particular yarn, i.e. I'd finished it somewhere else, I just swapped it out. Or this happened a couple of times. When I got to the second sleeve, I ran out kind of halfway around the sleeve. And so on those moments, I just joined wherever I was. Can't even feel not to show you an example, but I just joined wherever I was and kept going from that point. In terms of magic knots, that is the recommended way of doing it by the pattern. Just see if I can get you a better picture. And so their point is that magic knots kind of disappear wherever you have them. I can feel them, and so I wasn't sure about it, and I can still notice them. But I didn't want to get caught up with weaving in the ends, because I know that that's made a lot of people pause with knitting this pattern. And I liked the idea that doing magic knots, they just disappeared as I went, and I didn't have to go back and do it afterwards. It did make making the sweater a little slower, because I was making knots every time, and I figured out a way to make sure that the knots stopped and started at the right spot, but that then screwed with my tension a bit and made that line obvious, because it is there, where I think the idea was that magic knots don't start and stop at the same time. There's a little bit of give, and so you might have the pattern disrupted, but you wouldn't have a line of knots. So my precision means that I do have a line of knots. To be honest, I'm not sure I'd do it differently. I don't mind having obvious seams on such a scrappy sweater, particularly because they are mostly hidden. The one on the center back is a little more annoying. Yeah, I was thinking about it yesterday, because I was like, maybe I am disappointed that it's so obvious, but I don't think weaving in those ends would have made it a better experience, and the lines aren't stopping me from wearing it or enjoying the sweater. And if someone asks, I'll say, yeah, I made it, and couldn't be bothered to weave it all the end, so that's why there's a line there. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm not concerned with those knots. If I had done it not scrappy, then I would probably have woven in ends, or if I had only one color, maybe. But for completely scrappy, I'm very happy with it, and I'm happy that it's finished. And yeah, I don't think I'd change it. I'm just thinking, because I kind of want to make another one, and if I make another one, I'd probably do a controlled color palette, so all cool colors or all warm colors. I'd love to have a complete scrappy like this, and a cool and a warm, and one held throughout. And it was so much fun. If you're on the bench about making this sweater, make it. I do recommend gauge swatching first, but make it. So much fun. Yeah, so we'll see. I'll think about that. Anyway, anything else I need to tell you for this? And yeah, so then after I finished this, I did some scrap management because I had a big tub of scraps, and you will see some of them coming up. It was a lot of fun because I had two big tubs, and by the end of this, I had one tub. So I had halved what I had, and some pieces I'd used up completely. Some of the ones that I had left over were actually decently sized. And then I added some scraps from another project and had some fun. I love scraps. All right, so that is my sea glass sweater. My second, I'm not quite going to do it in order of when I finished, but I do, yeah, there's a reason for that. So my third finish since the last podcast is my onion tea. This is a summer knit, which it is now too cold to wear. Oh well, it will go away for next year. This I made with, I don't have any left to show you, but it is Belle's Drops in, I think it's colour 15, Gins, or Jeans, depending on if it's Polish or not. I'm not a huge fan of the yarn. It's blocked nicer than it was before I blocked it. Definitely blocking has improved, but it's just, I don't know. It has a bit more of a rustic look than I think I would want, and it may be a bit thicker and not quite as drapey. I don't remember if I gauge swatched for this one or not. I don't remember. Either way, I like it. I'm not in love with it, but it is also a bit cool to wear it. So I'll put this away for next year, and I'll pick it out and see if it's something that I will wear next year. It's too cold now. I took too long to cast it on. Let's go back to the beginning. This is the Anya Tea. It is a pattern by Comfort Zone Knits, who is a Polish designer. Sorry, Renia of Comfort Zone Knits. She is a Polish designer, and I knit the pattern in Polish from the Polish pattern, and I had the English pattern there just as a check, so I can make sure that when it got to a bit more of a wordy section, I knew what I was meant to be doing. It was a lot of fun to knit. It was interesting because it doesn't join in the round till down here. So I had a lot of knitting and purling up the top, which, and I didn't really like doing eyelets in the cotton because this yarn is Drops Belle. It's 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. So it didn't have the stretch that I'm used to with a merino, and I found that off-putting, at least at the beginning. I definitely did hit my stride with it, but it made the eyelets a little annoying. But I liked knitting it. I enjoyed it. This was my reach for project for a long time. I mean, for a couple of weeks. Whenever I wanted to just sit and knit and not think, this one came out. I did make a couple of mods just on the length and the bottom. The length I made one repeat shorter than it said to, so it's a very cropped sweater, and I also made the ribbing, I think, maybe an inch shorter than the pattern said. So it is much more cropped than they said, and I liked it when I tried it on. Now that it's blocked, it seems a little short. And so I don't know whether it actually got slightly shorter when I blocked it, or now that it has the drape, it looks shorter. But it definitely didn't grow, and it's cotton, and so it shouldn't grow. But I don't use cotton much, and so I'm not sure I took that into account. I thought maybe it'll grow a little bit, and it didn't. It does have linen, but the linen didn't make it grow. So anyway, I took a video before, so I'll just pop a little bit up here of me actually wearing the sweater or the shirt, because I know wearing things makes a big difference. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I will wear it because I do wear what I knit. Definitely if crop things are still in next summer, I would wear it. But I think either I need to get a good cardigan and boots to wear it now, or it'll go away for next summer. I could turn it into a fall look. The pattern was good. It is a free pattern on Ravelry. I will link my project page below so you can find it. It is a free pattern on Ravelry and it is in Polish and English. The pattern itself was great. I think there's just a few things that if I wasn't doing it in cotton, if I'd done it in a merino or something, that could be nice. All right. So finished object number 3, which I actually finished second, is a beanie. This is a beanie for my son. So we went on holidays up to the Baltic Sea and it was beautiful. It was lovely. But the week we went was the week that everyone went back to school in Poland, and somehow the weather knew it, and so it got cold. It was still beautiful. We were still able to paddle. My son definitely got into the water completely, but we did not. But I noticed that everyone was starting to wear beanies, and I didn't have beanies for the kids, but I did have yarn, and yarn that through another escapade meant that I didn't have something necessarily to do with it. So I cast on a beanie. This is what it looks like. Maybe I should make one for me too. I would totally have a bobble if I made one for me. My husband has asked for one without the bobble for him, like exactly the same. This fits my son, who is 3.5. It fits me. It fits my husband, who has a bigger head than me. And without the beanie, without the bobble, it fits my daughter, who is 1. With the bobble, it makes it a bit top heavy and falls off her head. But without the bobble, it fit her beautifully. I'm going to get a bit of hat hair this episode. That's all right. So this beanie, it is made out of Malabrigo Rios. This is the yarn. It is a worsted weight yarn in the, oh, now I'm not going to remember. It's a worsted weight yarn. It is, like I said, Malabrigo. And this is the Gris, Gris colorway. So what happened was I bought yarn to make a sweater for my husband, but they didn't have enough of one grey that I needed for the base of it. And so there were 2 greys there that were very close. I'm now looking, trying to figure out which ones are the 2. There we go, 2 greys. I don't even know if you can see the difference here. They're very close in colour, but not quite the same. This one has a warmer undertone, this one has a cooler undertone. This is Cape Cod Grey and this is Gris. So I bought a mix thinking I can stripe it into the sweater and it won't make much difference. But the collar of the sweater is knit. So it's a colorwork sweater and the collar is knit afterwards. And so I was like, maybe I want enough, I'll do the whole collar in this one and do the colorwork striped with both. So I got more of this one. But then when I brought it home out of the light of the place that I bought it, I was like, actually, I think this color would suit my husband better. And I know it's a very slight difference, but a slight difference can make a big difference in terms of how much you reach for something. And I'm making a colorwork cardigan with steeking for my husband. I want him to wear it. So I had a look around and I found that I could buy more of this one. And so I did that. And then I used this to make beanies for my son and my daughter, which I'll show you in a minute. And then my husband tried on my son's beanie and said, I really like it. Can you make me one in this color? The color is great. After, not only had I used this, but I had bought more of the other one. So now I have plenty to make a sweater and a beanie, and I've just got to decide if I just stripe them the whole way for everything or whether I still try and do the collar out of just one color and what that means for the rest of the sweater. But that is coming, I was going to show you later, but I'll just show you now. This is the gauge swatch, the colorwork gauge swatch. It is the Spice Cardigan by Andrea Maori of Dre Renee Knits. And so yeah, in this part you wouldn't notice if it was striped in this part here, but when you're doing it plain, it would become more obvious. So this is the contrast color that I got to go with it. And yeah, really like it. So there you go. That's from acquisitions that I won't talk about now, or upcoming knits, either one. So the Spice Cardigan by Andrea Maori, which again, I will link below. So my son got a beanie. This pattern is not a pattern. I just made it up. I have put all the information about how I did it on Ravelry, so if you're interested in making something similar, you can go there. I'm thinking of turning it into a pattern that can just be a download, like a one-size-fits-all beanie. But basically, it's 2x2 rib, and then after I knit up to twice that, I just put it inside and picked up stitches and knit them together to create a always folded part, because I know with children it's easier if it's just always folded than having to keep folding it up when you put it on his head. So it's just 2x2, and everything I did about decreases is on Ravelry. I was going to do a pattern, and then I started with the edging, which is just 96 stitches, 2x2 rib. And this wasn't part of the pattern, and I did that, and then I kept going, and I was like, I'm just going to make it myself, and I really like it. And then the faux pom-pom, I got from one of my local passementarias a while ago to make beanies, so that was exciting. So, like I said, it was cold, so I then got to knitting on one for my daughter. This one has little ear flaps because it gets cold here. It is a cabled one. I did follow a pattern for this. It is called the I Heart Cables Beanie. And it is by, I should know who it's by, I Heart Cables Beanie by Letty's Knits. So Letes Knits, which is Justina Karkowska, if I've spelt that correctly. It's a bit hard to read my own writing. Again, Ravelry project page will be linked below. So it is a free download on Ravelry in Polish and English. I did do it in English this time. I was on holidays. And then another faux pom-pom. I did the child's one, I believe. My daughter is one. It swims on her. So it'll fit her for the next few years, and that's fine. But I am thinking I might need to make her a different beanie for this year. It is cute. It does obviously fit on her head. It just also falls off. And this comes under so far that you almost are tying the ear flaps rather than the eye cord. The pattern says to put bubbles on the end of here as well, but I didn't have smaller ones, so I've just left them. So yeah, absolutely love it. This was on, I should say, I'm doing really badly today. This one was 4mm needles, 2x2 rib. This one was on 4.5mm needles. So 4mm for the ribbing, 4.5 for everything else. And it blocked out beautifully. I'm really liking this yarn, so I'm glad that I'm going to make a sweater for my husband or a cardigan for my husband out of it. But it did block out a lot. It fitted really well before I blocked it, but you couldn't really see the cables that well. So maybe next time if I do something like this and it fits, I'll leave it and then I'll block it after they finish. All right, this is not a recent finish, but since I was showing you the beanies I've made for my family, I just wanted to show you this one, which is a hat I made for my husband. This is knitted, 100% knitted. It does have a piece of template plastic from sewing in the brim to give it that structure, but everything else about it is just done with knits. and like knitting through things. Yeah, so this is called the Knitty Morgan. It is a free pattern, which again, I will link below. There is no project page for this because I did this before I used Ravelry for projects. But I just wanted to show you because I'm really proud of this. I knit this. Yeah, that's it. Knitty Morgan. It is out of Bendigo Woolen Mills Rustic, I believe. Love it. I should just say I'm using my earphones as a microphone, so I don't know how much my hair is interfering with that. But they do fall out of my ears. I have strangely small ear holes. And so even the smallest size things don't fit great. So every now and then I have to adjust them. And I know that makes a bit of a noise for you guys, but I'm sorry. That's just, if you want a clearer throughout, that's what we get. All right, 3 more finished objects. This next one, I mentioned scrap management from this project. This is that. I made a rug. This is a crocheted rug. It is made using a 8mm hook. And it is made mostly using scraps from this. I also use, you can see a blue that kind of goes through, well, from here to here. That blue, the light blue, is leftovers from this project. So I have no more scraps of that cotton left. And then the green, the mint green and the pink, that is kind of the constant colors in these 2 sections, were both 2mm macrame cotton that I had bought to make baskets. But then I decided I needed a rug for beside my bed and I had all the scraps out, and so I just did it. I made this in 3 days, I believe. Yep. Started it on the 15th of September, finished it on the 17th of September. I did not use a pattern. I very loosely followed for the cast on center. I believe it's My Poppet or My Poppet Makes. I will link the tutorial below. She has a tutorial for scrappy crochet baskets. And obviously they have a round bottom. So I went and read what she said for the center. And I don't think I even properly followed it for even 1 round. Like the first round, she said, do this many, and I did more. So I didn't really follow it, but that was kind of my thinking for it. And then I just kept going. I obviously didn't make a side to make it a basket. I just made it a rug. If it was starting to kind of bunch up, I did less increases. If it was starting to curve up, I did more increases. And then when I'd finished it, I blocked it. And so it was sitting a bit uneven before I blocked it, but after I blocked it, it stayed flat, and I can now put it beside my bed. It's getting cold here, so I'm really excited to have something other than wooden boards under my feet, or plastic pretend wooden boards under my feet. What else can I tell you? Like, I can't tell you how many rounds I did, anything. I just worked it in a spiral, in a circle, until I ran out of yarn. So there are the green and the pink were each 250 grams of 2mm macrame yarn. I think at the beginning I was holding 3 strands together. So the 2mm macrame and then 2 DK or worsted or something-ish scraps. You could also do it with fingering. If you didn't have macrame, you could just do more scraps. But basically I just did as much as I could with an 8mm hook that it felt sturdy. And I did the macrame because I knew, or when I was looking at rugs, they were recommending cotton, not wool. And obviously that has wearing things to it. So I was like, I'm happy to put some wool in, but I want the cotton as the base. And then for some of them up here, I started using thinner scraps. And so I started holding 4 rather than 3. but I just did it. If I did a couple of stitches and went, oh, that feels a bit thin, I just added another one in. If I thought it felt a bit thick, I took one out. Yeah, so not helpful for if you want to replicate, but I made a rug, a crochet rug. The hook I used is this one. It is Tulip Etimo 8mm. I got this from Lot. This is another acquisition. Etimo is Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady's favourite crochet hooks. And so I've been wanting to try them, and they were at Lot, so I got this and some more, which I'll show you in a bit. And yeah, it was really comfortable. I didn't get the same kind of cramp that I normally get if I'm crocheting tightly. I don't think I got RSI. Like, I did a lot of crocheting in 3 days, and while I needed to stretch occasionally, it was better than normal. So I did really like it, and I'm looking forward to doing other crochet projects with the other sizes I got. So that's my rug. Now, 2 more finished objects. I can't believe we're more than half an hour in, and I've only spoken about finished objects. This is what happens when I'm away for a month, and a lot of that month is holidays. I had a lot of knitting time. All right, so this next one I actually finished just a few days ago. Again, scrap management from this. There were a couple of yarns that I did not want to put into the rug. So the rug was all of the like more ugly ones that I just wanted to get rid of and not use again. Or like the cotton that I wasn't a huge fan of, but also I didn't have another scrappy project I could put it in because I don't use cotton much. So that was just kind of a get rid of yarn project in a way that is useful and looks pretty. But there were some that were too pretty to use in that, or too nice. And I realized I had some sock yarns that were DK. So I made some DK scrappy socks. I got the idea from Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady because she's doing a scrappy stripy sock knit along at the moment for her scrappy stripy socks, which are 7 colours of stripes in the leg and then again down here before you get to the toe. I have toyed with the idea of casting some of her knit along. I don't think I'm going to, but I found that I had this blue, which is the collar, that I was originally wanting to do DK socks with, and then this purple that came from also Daffodil Road yarns, but I got it a year later. My sister and I bought some for this project, and so I had 50 grams of this, like just over 50 grams to start with, and I ended up with just under 50 grams of the blue after I did the collar and cuffs and bottom. And because I've only used a few stripes of this throughout, I still had a good amount, like I think just on 50 grams of the purple. And then these little ones here, this lighter purple and this pinky colour, which are actually different, not that you can really see there, they were minis that came with this purple. And so I only got maybe 10 grams of them, and I used most of them in here. So I just had enough to do a couple of small stripes, but I really liked them, and so I wanted to use them. And so I just made up a pattern to use what I had left. So again, details are on Ravelry, and I'll make sure that it's updated. But basically, I just did 4 rows. I did stripes in a way that weren't even because I knew that I didn't have the same amount of these. But rather than just stopping after those stripes, I wanted another blue one. So I just did this purple again here. And I knew I wanted the contrast heel and toe because I knew I needed to use almost as much blue as I did purple to make it work. And so then I did this, and when I got a bit of the ways down here, I weighed my purple and knew that I had not a huge amount left. And so then I striped in the blues, and actually when I finished it, I think I have maybe a foot of the purple left after the second sock. and the blue I had a few grams. It wasn't much. It was a little bit more than the purple. So I'm very happy with how that worked out in terms, sorry, the lighting is all coming from this window and I'm facing not the window, and so I'm getting weird shadowy things. Anyway, the color, the yarn management worked out really well. So there is like 90, let me just double check. There is, scrappy, 95 grams of yarn in here. And like I said, there were 50 of this, I think there was 48 of this, and then whatever little bits I had there, plus sewing in ends. So I used pretty much every bit of scrappy yarn left from these. And I love them. And it is getting cold, so I will wear these out. I will wear them at home. I'm debating at the moment whether I try and make enough scrappy socks DK socks, that I can actually buy a pair of shoes just to wear with DK socks, because they are thicker. I'll need a slightly bigger shoe if I'm doing that. But they're so warm and comfy, and I love them. So yeah, leftover scrappy DK socks. Both yarns are Daffodil Rose yarns. I did mention that, but I want to say it again because it's really nice and I am going to love wearing these. Daffodil Rose yarns is an artisan dyer in Tasmania, Australia. Now, the next set of socks is a bit exciting because these are the first socks that I have knit from yarn that I have dyed. And here they are. I actually finished these just a couple of days ago. Now, it kind of looks to me like a child has scribbled on a sock. It's kind of what it looks like, particularly this one. Just a little bit of scribble with crayon on a sock. There are two things to note. The first is these are done from a sock blank. So I actually saved this so I could show you. The sock blank is very strangely poorly drawn flowers on one side. I did it with a paintbrush and powder, not actual paint. So I just did very rough, whatever. And then on the other side are splotches that, I mean, you can see here orange and pink. I just got to the orange in the one that I was making. So it's just a very kind of rugged, I knew that it would knit up somehow, so I just kind of went for it. And so you can see here, like the yellow splotches here and the orange splotches coming out here, and then obviously the green and the pink from the flowers throughout. In this one, you've got very few, but some purple splotches up here and then blue splotches, and then you just kind of start getting to the green splotches at the heel, which then pick up in the cuff of this one. So it is kind of a gradient that goes around, and I didn't get to the pink, but it's spiraled, and so it just kind of looks to me like a kid has drawn on it. I like them. I'm actually surprised. When I started, I didn't think I would, but I actually really like them. The heels and toes are another sock blank that I dyed, which is more of an all over. This is ice dyed. So I'm actually going to knit socks out of this. I still have almost 100 grams left, so it must have been a slightly over 100 gram sock blank when I bought it. But I'm planning to do socks out of this, so we'll see what that looks like when I get to that. Sorry, the sun's coming in differently and it's now blowing out. So what can I tell you about these? They are knit on 2.5mm needles. They are 60 stitches. The heel is a German short row heel. I followed the instructions from the Wednesday Socks by F Knits, which I'll link below. I won her week of vanilla socks, or week of plain knitting socks or something. But basically she has 7 socks that are vanilla, basically plain knitting, but they have different heels, different toes. Some are toe up, some are cuff down. And so for these, I just searched through and found a cuff down with a German short row heel and copied the heel. And I believe hers was for 64 stitches and I only had 60 stitches. So I just stopped 1 row before at one point or something. But I'm really happy with how they worked out and how these match the colours in here so well, even though I didn't dye them to go together. So that is all my finished objects. Whew, 45 minutes, 7 finished objects. Crazy. All right, so we're going to go jump straight into whips here because there are still a lot of things to go. That is not the right bag for that. Is that the right bag for that? Yes. All right. So these ones are called Avena Socks. And this is from the 52 Week of Socks book. This was a gift from my sister for Christmas. And the second sock in it is called Avena. So it's a textured kind of slip stitch cable something or other sock. And I've been trying to figure out what yarn to use to make it. And then I realized I had this yarn, which I had started a pair of socks for a few times and never finished. I can't tell you much about the yarn. I got it from the mulberry tree in Milton. All I've got is the cuff. It is a 1x1 twisted rib cuff. Beautiful. My sister is knitting these socks at the moment because I gifted her the book. And she was having some trouble with something in the foot and was ready to rip it out a few times. And I was like, I'll cast it on and then maybe I'll understand and can help you. I got the cuff done and haven't touched it because I've been working on other projects. And because it is a pattern with a book, I don't want to carry it around with me and I need to focus on it. And I just have not picked it up to actually learn what the pattern is. Once I learn it, I may be able to just walk around with it or take it. But at the moment, it is a concentrate knit, so I haven't. But that is my Avena socks, which I have cast on since the last time I spoke to you guys. The next one is, these are a little out of order. The next one are my Follow Your Path socks, which is a pattern by the Crazy Sock Lady. Now, this is the yarn. I cannot tell you anything about what it is or who made it. Nothing. I feel like it's a sport weight. It was a gift from a friend years ago. Like, I can't even remember how many years ago, maybe like 5 or 6 or 7. It was a birthday gift because I said I wanted to learn how to knit socks and she gave me this and I cast on a pair of socks and never finished them. And I finally frogged them late last year or early this year. I was like, I need to use the yarn for something. Well, when she was visiting, I was like, I want to cast on these new socks. So she's an Australian friend who came to visit. Also, since I podcasted last, her name's Rosie, a knitting friend. It was lovely, but I'll talk about that more in chatter. So she came and I wanted to cast on a new pair of socks with this pattern. And I went to look and I came back out and said, I think this yarn will work nicely. And I agree it does, but then I realized it's the yarn that she gave me. And so that was a bit sweet. So this is my sock. I have a half finished object. This is the sock that I finished. It is the Follow Your Path socks pattern by Kay Litton of the Crazy Sock Lady. And I absolutely love it. So it's got a beautiful texture, a faux cable. They're actually twist stitches. It is just, it's gorgeous. I love it. I love the look of it in this I love the look of it in this yarn. It just kind of makes me think of fall. I don't know why, but it does. Cozy, snug, beautiful. And it is, like, I don't think it's a DK, but it's definitely thicker than a fingering. So I'm thinking maybe a sport. So it's just going to be such a snug, warm sock to wear. And I didn't want to stop knitting it. I was doing it cuff down. Like, I'm sure it's cuff down. It's a KE pattern. So it's cuff down, but I just kind of didn't want to stop. And so I just kept knitting and knitting and knitting. And then finally I tried it on and went, maybe I should, because I didn't make it big enough to go too far up my leg. But I might make another one and do some increases somewhere, or start it bigger and do some decreases so that I could have knee-high socks of this. I have absolutely loved knitting them. So this was my train knitting to and from holidays. I did a little bit on holidays, but obviously I got distracted with other things. Yeah, it's a delightful knit. And my friend Rosie, who was visiting, has now finished a pair of socks with the same pattern. So anyway, that's a half finished object. And I have the other one started, because I don't do second sock syndrome. Once I finish one, I cast on the next. So this one is just a little bit done, just a little baby cuff. It is, I'm doing the medium size because it is a ribbed sock. So I like vanilla sock on 2.5 millimeter. I'm doing 2.5 like I normally do. I think the pattern calls for a 2.25. And I'm really glad I did, because this yarn is quite thick. But typically I will do 2.5 millimeter, whatever the pattern calls for. And I do 60 stitches fits best. 56 if it's a vanilla sock is okay on 2.5. If I'm doing a ribbed kind of pattern, I'll often do the 64 stitches because it just cinches it in. So these are really comfortable. I'm doing them on DPNs, Knit Pro Zing DPNs 2.5 millimeters. I just had a hankering, actually this is why I wanted to cast it on with Rosie here. I really just wanted to knit socks with DPNs. And I had bought these when I bought these ones for my sea glass sleeves. And I started using them for my sea glass sleeves and was finding it just a bit awkward. And so then I got them out and started the new sock. And when I saw Rosie knitting, because she was also using DPNs, I realized she was using 4 and not 5. And so I put one of mine away and I knit with 4, and I found it so much easier than with 5. And so I did the same when I went back to the sea glass, is I actually knit them on 4 instead of 5, and it was much easier. So I don't know if you use DPNs. If you do, I'd be interested. Do you prefer 4 needles or 5 needles? I found it so much easier. And since they come in packs of 5, I now have a spare. So if I lose one, I'm set. So anyway, I absolutely loved it. I just was blown away by how much I enjoyed it, and I want to knit all of my sleeves on DPNs now instead of Magic Loop. And all of my socks, which I haven't done any others yet, but I'll explain why in a minute. But yeah, so I absolutely love them. And then I made this little needle cozy with some fabric that I had. The perks of being a sewer as well as a knitter. And so you just put them in, snap it shut, and this is more awkward than it normally is. And then they're not going to fall off the end. The needles aren't going to disappear. They're all there, nice and safe. Lovely. So that is my Follow Your Path socks. I really enjoy them and I really want to work on them again. I've been a little bit distracted by other things, and you will understand why in a few minutes. But I am excited to finish them. And there is a possibility they would be finished if I hadn't decided to finish these socks. But I decided these ones should be finished because I started them ages ago. And they're vanilla knitting, so easy to do anywhere. All right, so this next project is another one by Wool and Pine Designs, who made this one. This is the 3-season cardigan. I should have a picture here somewhere so you can get an idea. Black and white. I don't print patterns in colour. So it's a cardigan. It's designed to be made in a wool cotton blend, so that it's appropriate for autumn, winter, or spring. I had decided to do it in Malabrigo again, so the same that I did this one. I also bought yarn for my 3-season cardigan, and it's all caked up. It is called Bobby Blue. I absolutely love this colour. Look at that with my hair. It's going to be beautiful. It is a cropped cardigan with cable work and lace work, and it is knit. Yeah, it's knit top down, but it's knit. You knit the back, and then you knit, and then you pick up at the top and you knit the front, and then you pick up for the sleeves and knit the sleeves. So I think it's knit technically in one piece, and then you'd have to seam down here. So it's, and under the arms. So I think it's knit in one piece, but there's still a bit of seaming and provisional cast-ons. I obviously haven't touched it. So I did this, I cast it on holidays, and I had a lot of fun knitting on the holidays. I cast it on, I think, as soon as I finished this one, but then I got distracted with the beanies. And because I felt like I had the time pressure of we're on holidays and they need the beanies now, I got completely distracted with the beanies. And so I didn't really work on this much after that point. But this is what I have done. So this is the top edge, like I said. It is a provisional cast on, which is what that green yarn is doing. And this will sit like that, but on my back. It is beautiful. I love it. It's done with charts. So if you're not used to charts, you may need to learn that. Not that you would struggle, just you'll need to learn how to do charts because it's not written out. I find charts for something like this much easier than written out because it's harder to lose your place, I find. But it is absolutely beautiful. So the lace pattern, some different stitches, cable, a bigger section of cable. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. I love the yarn. It does leave a blue residue on me and possibly on the bag by now. I'll definitely wash it separate before I do anything else and block it separate. But it is stunning. I just love, love, love cable work, and it's nice to have another cable work sweater. But obviously it does take a bit of brain power to be able to follow and do this and focus. So I just need to do it. It'll probably become my nighttime knitting when a couple of other things are finished. So maybe November it'll become my nighttime knitting, because I would like to have it done to wear this season or next season. But other things have been pushing in on my knitting list. So what I've done is, you can see I've got different stitch markers. These are to tell me the different sections that I'm doing. And I have this one, which is a beautiful little baby peas in a pod. And this one, which is a cute little radish, they're newer acquisitions from Dritterslot, the market I went to. But they're there because when I'm doing the purl row, so the right side row with cable sweaters is usually the one that you do pattern on, and then the wrong side you just knit whatever you knit the previous row. So if you're looking at a knit stitch, you do a knit stitch. If you're looking at a purl stitch, you do a purl stitch. But this pattern, this section, is worked on the wrong side. So when everything else is just knit and purl, no cables, no nothing, you have to do the pattern for this part. And so I put different stitch markers there. So when I'm going backwards or I'm doing the back, the wrong side, I know I actually need to pattern for that section. And it's worked really well. The other thing with this, which I will insert a clip here for, is actually I did that stitch wrong. Instead of, I think it's a purl front like purl two together and then knit through the same two. I did purl two together and then knit through the back of the same two. And so it still was a very pretty pattern, but it was a bit of a coarser texture and not, like, it looked different, but the main thing problem was the texture was different and wasn't as snuggy and warm. And so I ended up, I was about here, I ripped all of this back and reknit it, just that panel. So I just ripped back this panel and reknit that panel correctly. And I did the same on this side. And so I recorded it when I was doing it. It was in the holidays, but I just recorded a bit for you so that you could see what I did and how I did that, because I didn't want to rip out the whole thing and start again. I would have found that too frustrating. So I just ripped out these two panels. So I'm going to put the video here so you can see what I did and how I did it, and then I'll see you in a minute.
Hi, so I thought I would share this. I am working on the 3-season cardigan by Wool and Pine Designs, and I have been doing this yesterday, day before I think I cast on, and I'm just doing the back. You can see on my waist down here. It's a very, simple pattern for someone who's experienced with cables. So if you're interested, go for it. But I realised this part here I've been doing wrong. This stitch is meant to be a knit two purl together and then, purl two together and then knit the same two together. And so what I was doing was I was purling them together and then I was bringing the yarn over and I was knitting into the back loop. And that's created this pattern here. But if you look down the bottom with these little almost slip sections, that's what it's meant to look like. And it's not a big difference in look. It's definitely different, but I only did the 2 rows here correct. On the other side, I only did 1 row correct. And then the rest I just had defaulted to knitting into the back loop. And so I wasn't going to change it because look-wise, I don't mind. It's still consistent, but I have noticed that it is much more flexible down here than up here. And this part feels quite soft on both sides, where this part feels quite bumpy. Now, tension-wise, it is also a bit different. This is a tighter tension, which I didn't really mind. Like, it's not going to be enough of a difference overall to warrant a change. But the texture, because this will be on my back, and if I'm wearing a singlet top or something underneath this, I don't want to have bumps pushing into me. And I think it's enough of a difference in terms of the fabric that I did decide I wanted to go change it. I wasn't going to. I've knit a few rows since I first noticed the problem, but I'm coming back to change it. So I thought I'd show you what I'm doing. So here is the side that I've already done it. I knit across this first section. So I've knit across here. When I got to the section that I wanted to change, instead of knitting across like you would on a normal row, I've actually come down to where the problem was. And so you can see maybe down here, so there's a couple of rows of knit and then the first row of stitches, and you can't see it super clear, but this row here was done correctly. So what I've done is I've picked up the row of stitches above the last correct row, because it's you do the stitches on one row and the next row is a plain knit row. And so I made the mistake down, this row is correct, this is a plain knit row, and then these rows were wrong. So what I've done is I've picked up all the right stitches, so the right hand side of the stitch loop. And then what I will do up here, I've got my other working needle here. This is my actual working yarn that is connected to my ball, which is all hanging out behind here. But what I'm going to do, is actually just pull this out. And I'm going to do that for these stitches for every row. So I will end up with these stitches gone. Now this is going to be a little bit hard to do, especially one-handed, but just pull them out. And I know that I'm going to pull this down to here. It won't go beyond this point because these stitches are already picked up. And it's not going to go beyond this point or this point because the side ones are already on needles. So it is just this row, this column that I'm pulling out, and I will pull these out all the way down to this needle. Alright, so I've just done that, and you can see I have these massive yarns here, but all of these stitches are still safe here, and if I move this mess of yarns over, you can see that actually all of these stitches are also safe here. So what I've now got to do is, using this needle and this needle, is actually start knitting these front and back using these pieces of yarn. The only tricky thing at this point, aside from not having a huge tail to work with, is making sure that I do these yarns in the right order, because it is simple sometimes to pick up a yarn from a row above and knit that instead, and you'll end up with a bit of a twist here. Now, I can't say if I've ever done that before. I haven't noticed it after the fact, if it has happened. I have occasionally tried to pick up the wrong one and realize it's wrong, but I haven't noticed it after the fact where I've gone, oh, that's wrong. So if I have done it wrong, oh well. So I'm going to do that with this side and knit all of these back up until that is back correctly done. And then I will knit across this middle section, and when I get to this part here, I will do the same thing, is I'll actually come down and pick up the stitches above the last correct row, or of the last correct row. It'll just be above the last correct patterned row. And then I'll do the same. I'll rip it all down and then I'll knit it back up. Now this is the same technique that, well, this is basically the same technique I use with cables if I have to rip back a cable, is rather than taking out all of the work, I just will take out, say if I'd made a mistake here, like this cable went the wrong direction or something, I would just take out these 4 stitches, rip it back to where it had the last correct row, and then rework those 4 stitches up. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's much less fiddly than pulling out the whole thing of work. The other thing that people can do if they find they are constantly hooking back is putting in safety lines, where you'd actually put basically waste yarn through the entire thing and try and make it so that if you needed to rip back, you could just rip back, and essentially it would end up being like this. You'd rip back to where the safety line is, and then you would put it back on needles and keep going. I don't do that. I would hate to rip out that much work that I then do it. So I find if I've made a mistake in one part, I will just rip back that section and redo that section. And I've been doing that for a while with different cable things. The new technique for me this time, when I'm doing a longer section that I'm ripping back, is actually to pick up those stitches before I start ripping. Because cables, I don't. I find cables, it is easier to just rip back those 4 stitches. And especially if it's twisted, it can be hard to try and figure out which stitches you're picking up before you get there. With this one, I found it really easy to pick up those stitches first and then rip all this back. So I'm not worrying about ripping too far. Alright, I just wanted to show you this before I got any further. So I've done, you can see quite a bit of this, and you can see the texture is different than it was before. Yay! Have I started doing it wrong again? No, that is correct. Good. Alright, it definitely feels softer. So if I bring this around here, you might be able to see the difference between this. Like I said, the first 2 rows are correct, but you might be able to see the difference between this section down here and this one up here. It is very close, but like I said, this one is a looser, softer feel, which goes really well with the rest of this. This one was a bit tighter and bumpy and just a bit coarse. So I can see the difference, but it is a small difference visually. It's a big difference to the fabric. So I thought I'd show you. I still have these ones to put in, so I'm not finished this section. I'm getting close, yay! But I just wanted to show you one thing that I always get nervous about when I do this is the tension. Because if I pick this up here, you can probably see that, at least at the top, maybe, the tension, it's a bit loose and it's a bit everywhere. There's the ones that I haven't actually sewn in yet, but like here, like that's quite loose tension for those top 3. If you look down the bottom, it's also that last stitch is quite loose, but you'll also notice these ones down here are getting quite tight. So there are two things when you're doing this kind of ripping back and then re-knitting. The first one is don't knit too tight. You don't want your tension in this bit to get much tighter because you end up with a large bit at the end between the two, because you can't, it's a bit glary here, I'm trying to do it in the shade, you can't use any excess here in further stitches because you've already knit them all. So you want to make sure that your tension here is about right to what you normally do. For me, I can't hold the thread, the yarn, the way that I normally hold yarn when I'm doing it with such short tails. And so I just try and consciously think, make it loose. Because I know if I'm a little bit tight at the end, I'll prefer that than if I have a huge gap at the end. But the other thing is, when you're doing it, if you end up, like this end, you can see it looks a little bit tight, and some bits look tight, and some bits look a bit loose or big. I just kind of give it a bit of a stretch and a massage, and when I block it, it'll make a big difference too. And I'll even probably go back with the needle and just pull some of these loops out that are a stitch or two over to try and get some of that excess, like this one in here, try and get some of the excess gone just by pulling in these loops here. And that will, just help that sit a little nicer, a bit more consistent. But overall, I'm very happy with how it's going. And I will say, when I started down here, I was like, even though I've done this before, I was still going, this is really loose, this is a bit, I'm not sure if it's going to work out. Now that I'm up here, I've gone back and kind of tugged and pulled a bit, and the bottom is looking much better already. So don't be afraid of the loose bits. So you can see some in here still. I haven't gone back and like pull a needle through some of these. I've just tugged, and it has helped. There may be a bit of a tension difference between this and the rest of the sweater as it continues, but I'm not going to worry about it. It'll all come out in the wash enough that you don't notice, and the pattern will be right, it'll be soft, and anyone who doesn't know that I've done this probably won't notice there's a problem anyway. In fact, people who know that I've done this may not see the problem, so it's all good. Alright, just wanted to show you the in progress shot.
Alright, so welcome back. So you can see that's just how I did that to fix it, and now I'm holding it upside down, but it just seems more natural. That's where I'm up to. I really want to get going on this again, but I don't want to just pick it up and work on it for a day and put it away for another 3 weeks. I want to get it up and just keep working on it. So I am going to put it away for a little bit longer before I get my head back around this project. Do you do that as well? When you're working on a project, you know the details and information and everything you're doing with it. And when you put it away for a while, you then have to kind of relearn all those details, which means I can kind of work on 2 or 3 or 4 projects at a time. But if I'm working or doing something with them like every day or every other day, that information is retained. If I put it away for a week or 2, I have to relearn. And so whips that get put away are less likely to be touched just because I have to re-figure out where I'm up to. Not because I don't love them anymore, but it means when I get distracted with other things, it is harder to go back. So anyway, I'm trying to get things finished and work on them consistently. This is an outlier in that I am deliberately putting it away for a while because it's a concentration knit and I have other things I need to knit. The other thing I'll say about that one, the gauge swatch for that pattern is a 16-inch gauge swatch in cable. I did not do it. I started and looked at my gauge and went, oh yeah, that should be fine. And then put it away and then started second guessing myself, and then I went up a needle size, and then I started knitting, and then I was like, this is way too big, and so then I ripped that out and went down a needle size back to what I had originally thought was okay and did it there. And I'm happy with it. It's measuring okay. The yarn I know from my other one will stretch down. I don't know how much it will pull in but it will pull in a little bit and stretch down is my expectation. And with the cables and lace, it'll sit, I'm pretty sure, fine. I'm doing a bigger size. I couldn't tell you which one. There were two sizes that I could do and fall into their recommended positive ease. I'm doing the larger size so that if for some reason it doesn't block out as wide or something, that'll be okay. But I also didn't want it, like I'd rather it be a bit oversized than a bit small. Anyway, yeah, the other thing, okay, blew my mind, kind of. I was watching Andrea Maori's podcast yesterday, Dre Renee Knit, and there was a question about measuring knitting. And I was like, measuring knitting, that's easy. But it was measuring knitting, taking into account growth from blocking. And this is something that I've had a question about for a long time, because in reading patterns, it'll say, you know, for the body or for the sleeve, knit until it measures 16 inches or your preferred size. And so sometimes I will knit the sleeve to 16 inches and then I'll block it and it will grow by 2 inches and then it's way too big and then I rip it out and re-knit the cuff, and it's just been frustrating me that patterns that are like, this is your gauge and I'm hitting gauge, and then they say knit this long and then block it and it's too big. And so this pattern was kind of addressing that. Oh, this question was addressing that, and Andrea was like, no, absolutely. If it says knit to 16 inches and you know that 6 rows equals 1 inch and you have 5 inches, sorry, if you have like 5 inches to knit and you know that 6 rows will make 1 inch, 6 by 5 is 30, so knit 30 rows. And I was like, that's so simple. Why have I not done this before? Why does no pattern tell us to do this? They just say knit to this length, and I always knit to that length unblocked rather than figuring out what it would be blocked and then knitting to that length blocked for what it will be that length blocked. Sorry, I just thought I'd share that if anyone has had similar problems with growth in sweaters after you do things. Obviously, you need to do a gauge swatch and do a full gauge swatch so you know length and breadth. But yeah, like, come on. I'm so excited because it means that, I mean, I'm about to cast on another sweater and I've done a gauge swatch and I will talk about that in a minute. But when a sweater says knit to this many inches, I'm going to start doing that based on what it will be when it's blocked rather than what it is now. Anyway, I'm just curious to know, has anyone else had similar problems? Do you always, if it says knit 16 inches, convert that to how many rows for your gauge? Or do you just knit 16 inches and deal with whatever growth you get at the end? You know, let me know, because it blew my mind. And it does mean that there's a bit of extra math, but I feel like patterns should say that. Anyway, ponderings of a Kirsty in the middle of sweater knitting mania. So, my next whip, we are getting there, guys. My next whip is also an acquisition. This yarn is called Zima, which is cold. Sorry, is winter in Polish. Zima. And this is by Miss Nitsky. Miss Nitsky. That is not the tag for this one. Oh, the tag is inside. I'm not going to pull that out. I will just grab a different one from her. So this is what the tag looks like. Obviously, different yarn. So the one that I have is Zima, Zima, and it is 100% superwash merino. So I bought it thinking I would make socks with it, and then I realized that it didn't have any nylon, and I didn't want to make socks without nylon. So I decided instead to make a musselburg. That's all I've got so far. I finished the increases, and I'm on to the just plain knitting. Again, this hasn't had much work since I finished the increases because I've been doing other vanilla knitting, and because I'm debating whether I rip it out and change to a smaller needle size. So that is a 4mm for fingering. So it's quite a loose knit. This pattern is meant to be doubled over. There you go, just a little bit. The pattern is meant to be doubled over. So you knit a long tube and then you flip it inside itself. So you end up with whatever that thickness is twice. So I was quite happy to have kind of a looser knit, and maybe I'll keep it. The last one I had just seemed a little bit tight. Anyway, maybe I'll just keep going. But yeah, so started Musselburgh called with yarn called Winter or Shimmer. I think I'm doing the adult medium for that, which I think was the same size I did last time. The one that I did last time that I thought was too small, I actually have been wearing this year and I'm finding it comfortable. So I don't know what the difference is there. But yeah, Musselburgh. This one I don't have on a sock blocker, so I will just quickly do that. So then I've mentioned that I keep getting distracted. And the things that I keep getting distracted with are test knits. And so I feel like that's okay. If you're doing a test knit, it's okay to put other things on hold to do a test knit. So this is my first test knit that I have done. That has been the distracting test knit. It is called the Veronica Sock. It is a pattern that will be coming out soon by Renia of Comfort Zone Knit. And like that's the sock. I'm just trying to figure out. It fits really well when I've tried it on, but I will show you the pattern a little bit better. This is also an autumny the pattern reminded me of autumn, thus the yarn that I've chosen. Sorry, the yarn's getting blown out as well. That's a bit better. Yeah, so you have this beautiful texture, diamonds in the center, and then twist stitch and cable, or like mini cable and cable, and I love it. Obviously this is not blocked yet. The test knit for this was you need to have one sock done by the deadline. I do like this little detail that the cable continues up into the cuff. I think that's really cute. And the yarn is one that I dyed. Sorry, that's getting blown out again. So this is a yarn that I dyed. It is, I mean, I don't have a name for it or anything. It's just, I put it into a pot, it came out. I was going for autumn, I got autumn. This is the yarn in a ball. I don't know if you're new here, if you're wondering, I don't sell yarn that I dye. Oh gosh, this is getting blown out massively. I don't sell yarn that I dye. I just dye for fun. It's new to me, but I'm really enjoying it. And then my second sock for that, I did cast it on yesterday. And it's just a little toe. Oh, I should say, these are toe-up socks. This is unusual for me. I'm doing toe-up socks. Toe-up, so it should be that way. Toe-up socks. So I've just got a little baby toe of a sock there. The pattern is very clear in terms of what you're meant to do. There's a few things that are a bit strange in order to get the pattern centered and things like that, but she tells you what to do specifically step by step, which is really helpful. It is toe up and I don't like toe up, so it's not a fault of the pattern. I just find knitting the toe around fiddly. I don't know, haven't been sure previously whether I don't like toe up socks because I don't do them as often or because I just prefer cuff down, and I think it's just that I prefer cuff down. I prefer to cast on more stitches, kitchen of the toe, weave it in at the same time. I don't know, it's just my preferred method. But this sock was written for toe-up, and I really liked the pattern. She's got a cuff-down sock releasing at a similar time, I believe. But I liked the pattern of this one better, so I decided I would test knit the toe-up, not the cuff-down. And I did not sign up for both. I was not game to commit to that many socks when I had all these other things I'm doing. So that's that one. The next one, which is the last project that I will talk about, is another test knit. And this one is for another Polish designer whose name is Karolina Adamczyk. That is the sweater. It's called the Nico Sweater. And that is her name, Karolina Adamczyk. And the sweater is made in Gabo wool, which is a Polish brand of yarn. So the Nico Sweater, Niko, I will create a Ravelry page and put the link below. Yeah, cool. So this one, I actually wasn't sure if I'd be able to test knit it because her test knitting seemed to be full. But then she said, yeah, absolutely, come and join in. So I'm really excited that I get to do it. Because I am in Poland and it's a Polish brand of yarn, I thought, why not use the yarn that it's actually designed for? Which I don't often do. For test knits or anything, I usually just either stash dive or find something that I can get nearby and do a test swatch, which I should say for this one, I am doing them on 2.5mm needles. The pattern calls for 2.25, but I didn't gauge swatch this yarn. I just gauge swatched a similar feeling yarn and like feel, texture, weight that I had made socks for, and the other socks that I had was right gauge I needed for this pattern. So I just did 2.5 without doing a second gauge swatch. And I wanted to do them on some 2.5mm DPNs, but doing a Turkish cast on DPNs is a killer. And so I just went to circulars and didn't change. So for this one, I am using Gabo wool baby alpaca, which is exactly what it is designed for. So this is pudrowe, which is like powdered sugar, and like icing sugar, powdered sugar, and this is sangria. That's probably pretty accurate. I really like these colors. I love this color, and then I opted for a baby pink instead of a neutral like a beige. That's getting so blown out. I really like them together. I ordered the wool. It arrived the next day, so overnight delivery, which is more common in Poland than in Australia, but still surprises me when it happens. It is so soft. So it's 100% baby alpaca. It is by Gabo Wool. Gabowool.pl is the website. It is amazing. I cannot say enough how much I'm loving this yarn. I'm so looking forward to having a sweater in it. I want to make my husband a sweater in it. I want to make sweaters for my kids. It is a hand wash, so take it as you will. It was, I think, 27 or 29 zloty per ball, so just under $10 Australian per ball. I don't know what that is in US or anywhere else that you may live. But it's 50 grams to 112 meters, and it is delightful. Like I don't even know, I'd make a blanket. I would sleep on balls of this. Like it is just so delightfully soft. So I'm making the sweater in this yarn, and I'm so glad that this sweater is designed in this yarn because otherwise I would never have tried this yarn. And now I want to go and see what other yarns Gabo Wool has. They have actually they do have like cards of color cards that you can buy for 5 zloty, so a couple of bucks. That I will probably get because they have, I think, Highland Merino and a few other things, and I really want to know what they feel like. Anyway, delightfully soft. Love it. I did a gauge swatch last night. It is still very slightly damp, but not enough to matter. This is not the pattern of the sweater. I'll just say that. I was just doing random bits because it needed a colorwork gauge and a stocking gauge. I will say I love this about this pattern. It has a gauge for both. The gauge in the pattern, so the woman who made it, her gauge is very similar for both, but they are different. I know my colorwork tends to be tighter, and so I did a gauge swatch that encompassed both so I could see the difference. And I'm really glad I did, because the stocking one, I'm actually going to have to go down a needle size. So my stockinette is a bit looser than what she does, but I'm going to have to go up a needle size for the color. And you can see if I hold that there, like it is curling in a bit, but also it is just significantly not as wide. So I did the whole gauge swatch on 4mm. I'm going to go down to a 3.75 for the stocking and up to a 4.5 for the colour. I don't think I'm going to gauge swatch again. I think I'll just start knitting. I think I'll start knitting and assume that I've hit gauged at that point. But again, I'm going to make sure that when it says knit to this length, I'm knitting that many rows for the gauge. And so I'm tempted, I may, but I don't know, because it's a knit in the round. That's why I've got all of these scraggly bits. I don't know how much yarn she's included for the gauge swatch. And so I don't want to do another decent size gauge swatch and end up with not enough yarn. Though I could get more, it is local and delivers really quickly. So I'll probably just start, I know I've said it and I've said it again and again, but I just cannot get over this yarn. Not paid advertisement. It is so delightful and amazing. And mittens. I could make mittens, beanies, all the things. Anyway, so that one is coming up. The Nico Sweater by Carolina Adamczyk. She's got the pattern releasing in Polish soon, I believe, but she hasn't had it tested in the English. So that's what I'm doing. I'm test knitting the English, and then after that, I believe she'll release the English separate to the Polish. I don't think she's waiting to release them together. But I'll definitely let you know when that happens, and you will see progress of my sweater as I knit it. So that is all my whips. Wow. I will just say this is my September page. I've filled up what there is for knitting, and I've started another one down here because I have no more room, and I'm going to have to write some more down here when I cast on this sweater. But also look at all those finishes. Like, it's not like I'm just getting a huge amount of projects, maybe a little, but I'm just finishing stuff. I've also frogged one of my projects, the night shift shawl. I frogged that because I was not happy with the yarn that I was doing it in, and it is going to be a big time commitment to make that shawl. And because I wasn't happy with the yarn, I just was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. Now that I'm saying this to you, I'm actually wondering whether I could make it in this yarn. That would be beautiful. Anyway, so that's one project that you're just not going to see again. I haven't even frogged it. I'll probably just chop it and chuck it in the bin and use the yarn for sweaters for the kids. But I wasn't happy with it. It didn't have the weight. I wasn't going to have the drape. Anyway, so that is all my projects. Now for stash building, acquisitions, upcoming things. I went to Druda's Lot, which is a Polish knitting festival, the oldest Polish knitting festival in Poland. It was started in 2015. So it's still quite new, but it's the oldest one from Poland. And that was in Torun. So me and my friend Rosie, and who was visiting from Australia, and my friend Sarah, who lives here in Poland, we went to this festival. We took my kids, which made it an interesting experience. We had the pram, and between the three of us, we were able to still look and buy and not be driven too crazy. And then we went outside and had a snack. They had some cakes and food for sale. So we bought some and went outside, sat on the grass and ate that. And Sarah stayed with the kids while Rosie and I went back inside. So that was really good. So a lot of what I'm about to show you is from that. So I got a couple more pairs of 4mm red lace circular needles of different sizes. This is 100 centimeters. I can't remember the other one I got. Maybe it was 80, maybe it was 60. Basically, I use 4mm a lot and I'm using them a lot more, and I didn't have many, so I've just got a few more of them. I showed you some stitch markers before on my 3-season cardigan, but these are the other ones that came with that. More little vegetables and a little broccoli. Super cute. These ones were from Dye Done. I didn't actually get any of their yarn, but my friends did. And it looked beautiful, and I am planning to buy more, planning to buy some of their yarn when I go back to the next knitting festival, which will be in a month or two. I bought some more Edamame Tulip needles. These ones are 4, 5, and 6mm. Sorry. Oh. Well, that's going to be interesting. I thought I was getting 4, 5, and 6mm, but I've got 2.5, 3, and 3.5mm, which is size 4, 5, and 6. That's okay. I will use them. I may just need to buy more. Anyway, they're pretty. They're pink. I'm very happy with them, even if they're not the sizes I was expecting. And they come in a little patch. This is actually a birthday present. My birthday is on Thursday. Today is Tuesday the 27th. My birthday is Thursday the 29th. I haven't technically unwrapped these, but I bought them. So whether my husband wraps them or not, they're actually from my parents. So thanks, Mum. Thanks, Dad. I'm very much looking forward to trying them. I haven't tried them, and I won't try them until my birthday. So that's why they're still sitting there. These ones weren't from Judah's Lot, but these are acquisitions. I was interested in trying my hand at making stitch markers. I don't know how well these are going to focus or show. Stitch markers, progress keepers, and so I've been looking for things online that I could buy. This is not going to work well. And so I found some necklaces that had a whole lot of different charms on that I just pulled apart and turned into individual progress keepers or stitch markers. So I'm really enjoying them. I've got at least one other sock. I don't know which sock. I didn't show you. So there you go. But I'm really enjoying them. I like stitch markers. I like knitting jewelry, as they are often called. And then I bought some, also not from Drew's Lot. This one was, I think, Amazon. But I bought some Knit Crew DPMs in different sizes. So this is 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and 4mm. So I got 2.5s individually, and I really liked them. So I wanted another set of 2.5s for socks. And then I wanted 4s so that if I was doing sleeves or cuffs or something, I could do that. I'd be tempted to get, I think you can get like a 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5 set as well, maybe. So I'd be interested in that, particularly for sleeves. But the reason I bought these when I did is that I wanted the 4s to do, when I pull it out, the I-cord, this part, because that is, you knit basically you knit 4 stitches and then you slide them to the other end of the needle and you knit them again and you slide them back and you knit them again, always knitting from the same side. So I can do it on circulars, but you're then pulling them through the whole circular needle. So much quicker on DPNs. So that's why I ordered these when I did. And Knit Pro things are actually very affordable. Like, they're not an expensive needle. So even for DPNs, where you're actually getting 4 needles, buying them individually, I think it was like 30 zloty, so about $10 for the 4 needles. So buying a set of them, it was maybe $40 for the 5 sets. So that came in a little handy thing. Now, this, not that one, these ones are from Dritterslot. So this is Miss Nitsky in her Macarena DK. So it's an 80% superwash merino, 10% nylon, 10% cashmere. And the colour is Midsummer Night. And that is getting so blown out. There we go. That's about accurate. And so what I did, I bought this for one sweater and then changed my mind of what I wanted to make with it. I now want to make it into an LET. But I needed a contrast colour. And so I found this one online. When I bought the extra of my Malabrigo for this project, they had this skein. And I just loved the colours in it. And I thought that will work beautifully with these ones as a contrast colour, because I didn't want anything too bright. I wanted it to be there but not too much. Oy. Sorry, the colour is, the sun's kind of going away and it's doing funny things. So this one is Malabrigo Dos Tierras. It's a 50% wool, 50% alpaca, baby alpaca. And it is Aniversario, so it's an anniversary colorway. And I bought these, it's a German shop. I'm not sure if I'll link them below. I will see if I can find them. If I do, I will link them. But it was a German shop that sent things over. This one is a basket that I picked up from a local shop that I now keep my whips in. Pretty fun. But this last one is also from Miss... Oh, here we go. I was wondering where these went. I also got some more stitch markers, which were a gift from Miss Nitsky at the fair because I bought so much of her yarn. And then here I have some buttons, which were just a thank you gift, and some tags that say handmade with love. And I got them, I couldn't even tell you what store it was, but I got them in a few different colours from a store at Dritterslot so that I can add them onto things and help me know which one is the right side. So a few different colours to choose from. So this one, upcoming knit, 6th of October. Does that date ring a bell for anyone? That is when the Mystery Knit Along Twists and Turns by Stephen West starts. And I'm joining in. I think I've mentioned it before, but last year I did the Sholography. I just moved to Poland. My sister was living in Australia, still is, and so her and I did it together. Another friend, Rosie, also joined in, but she never finished her shawl. She's doing it again this year. But Melinda and I knit the Sholography together, and it was really nice to just have something in common to knit. We also did our sea glasses together. She hasn't finished hers. She's just finished the body and started the sleeves, I believe. But yeah, I like doing knit-alongs with my sister in Australia. It helps close the gap. I love doing the Mystery Knit-Along by Stephen West because I learnt so much. There were techniques I'd never done. There were, like, it's always interesting construction, interesting everything. And if you ever look at the pattern and go, I have no idea what you're thinking, he has video tutorials for the entire thing. So you can just sit there and watch what he does, do it, pause the video while you finish that section, start the video, and he'll go on to the next section. It is amazing. I definitely recommend, if you like knitting, if you want a bit of a challenge, if you want to try something different, try the mystery knit along. Phenomenal. So this year I'm doing it again. It's called Twists and Turns. I'm hoping that means there's some cables in there, but who knows? Last year it was 5 skeins of fingering weight in different colours. This year it is 5 skeins of fingering weight in 3 colours. So you've got a main colour, a contrast colour, and then a colour pop. Sorry, twists and turns. That's for you, Rosie and Sarah. Stephen West, he has videos, and every time he talks about it, he's like, twists and turns. So twists and turns. I was planning to dye my own yarn this year because I've started dyeing yarn and I thought that would be fun. My sister's dyeing her yarn, my sister is dyeing my mother's yarn because my mum is joining in this time. It's spreading. Sarah's joining in this time. Rosie's joining in again. It's going to be great. I mean, these are the people that I personally have a chat with that we talk about. There is thousands of people around the world who do this mystery knit along. It's huge. Anyway, I thought it would be fun to make my own yarn, dye my own yarn. But then I went to Drew Lot and I saw this and I decided that maybe I wouldn't dye my own yarn this year. And this is also Miss Nitsky. It is her 50-50, so it's 50%, I believe, merino, 50% superwash merino, 50% silk. And look at that. It is so shiny and beautiful. It is soft and smooth and squishy. And I thought that would make a beautiful shawl. Then I saw this one and I thought that is beautiful. So he says main color, contrast color, and then color pop. And I thought maybe I can do something with them. And then I saw this one and thought, oh, that would make a nice contrast or color pop. And I wasn't sure which way to go with these in terms of which one do I want to be the main and contrast and which one the color. I then thought about my clothes, and this is the color of my winter jacket. It's this color. And so I thought maybe if I do these ones as the main and contrast, and then I can bring the green in as my color pop, that will mean that it will go with my winter jacket, but it won't be too close. So this is what I'm doing for the mystery knit along. I'm really happy with it. I mean, this is more of a purple and this is more of a blue, and I've got it with teal. But I'm really excited to do this. I haven't caked it up yet, obviously. That will come in the next week. It starts on October 6th. It is currently September 27. So I will cake it up soon and get it ready to go. My plan with the mystery knit along, and this is one of the things that people love or hate about it. It's a mystery knit along. The clues release every week. And so you have a week to knit, be up to scratch before the next one's released. Now, if you are slower than that, that's not a problem. You can take a year to knit this thing. That's fine. But if you don't want it to be spoiled, you really need to knit in that week, because people will share things, and even if you put like a spoiler image on Instagram will lovingly show you the second or third picture of people that you follow a lot. So if you don't want to be spoiled, basically don't go on Instagram until you've knit up to that part. So that's what I tried to do last year, and I think I got spoiled a couple of times for small bits when I was already most of the way through a clue. But I don't like spoilers. I don't like spoilers for TV shows or books or anything, so I don't want to spoil it for this. So I actually want to be knitting this fairly early in the week so that I can keep going with other knitting, but I really want to get this done. Last year, I just moved to a new country. I had a fair bit of time. I was able to do that. This year, I have well, the socks will be finished test knitting by then, but this one is due at the end of October. So I have this test knit to finish and my mystery knit along, and that'll be most of my knitting for October. I might still work on socks, maybe cast on some vanilla socks when I'm traveling, because neither of these are going to be travel friendly, like buses to and from church or to and from the shops. Yeah, so we'll see, but that is my mystery knit along shawl, which next time I record should be cast on. Won't that be exciting? So you can see I have a lot of projects here waiting to be done. I have projects to finish that I haven't finished yet, and yeah, I cannot wait to share with you what happens next. I've just seen. All right, so let's go. There will be a little bit more yarn stuff in Chatter maybe, but that is all of my projects, whips, upcoming projects, really. So if you're just here for the knitting and you want to leave, thank you for coming. If you want to hear a bit of chatter about holidays and I can't even think, holidays, knitting festival, stick around and let's jump in. Oh, I didn't even say. So knitting stash, yep, totals for August. So I told you last time I was going to try and tell you where I was up to with knitting my stash and stuff like that. So in August, I finished 3 projects. I knit a total of 1,217 grams of yarn. 1,217 grams of yarn. And I did add some yarn to my stash because I dyed a whole lot of yarn. So I guess I bought the undyed yarn, but I hadn't bought any yarn designed by others. Anyway, I dyed yarn. I added it to my stash. So I have, at the end of August, I had 18 kilos, 945 grams of yarn waiting to be knit. That's huge. I can't say it's going to go down in September because of all the stuff that I bought at Dridders Lot. I should say a lot of that was, like, some were saved up money, but there were also birthday presents and things in there. So it was a lot though. So anyway, that's where I'm at with my tracking. It was my biggest month to date in terms of using yarn, August was. And I had 3 finished objects. I think September will be bigger, but we haven't finished September yet, so you'll have to come back next episode to see how I'm going with that. My year to date, I didn't actually add up how much I've used. So anyway, I won't do year to date, but at the moment, that's where I'm at. In terms of Dridders Lot, which was a knitting festival, it was crazy. It was held in a building in Torren. We got an Airbnb for a couple of nights, which was the best Airbnb I've stayed in for a long time. It was me, my husband, my 2 kids, and Rosie and Sarah all staying in the same place. And it was great because every bedroom had a door, which I didn't realize was a big thing for Airbnbs until I went to the one after that where 2 of the bedrooms did not have doors. Anyway, so this one, it all had doors. It was really nicely laid out. It was a new Airbnb, so we took a bit of a risk because there was no reviews, but I left a glowing review. It was amazing. We went to the festival. I actually ran into the designer of this t-shirt, Renya of Comfort Zone Knits. I ran into her on the train on the way. I did a test knit for her for one of her sweaters, and I was wearing her sweater and she was wearing her newest cardigan release. And so I recognized the cardigan and then I recognized her. But I had a bit of a chat with her on the train on the way to Torren. The festival was a little bit nuts. There were things going on in Polish that I didn't understand. And so there were games and things that were happening, and there were workshops that I didn't do any of. I basically shopped and ate. But it was a little bit nuts. We walked in and got distracted by the first shop. did a bit of a scoop around, came back to the first shop because it was actually a really great shop. But it was packed. There were, I don't know how many exhibitors, maybe 20, 25 exhibitors, vendors. But at every stall, there would have been, well, no, at the stalls that we were interested in, there would have been constantly at least 10 or 15 people, sometimes more. And depending on how they laid it out, sometimes it was, everyone kind of out the front trying to reach. Sometimes they laid it out so you could go around and then it wasn't quite so bad. But there were times that you would be standing 3 or 4 people back. So there would be times that there'd be like 30 or 40 people at one stall and there was just no way of getting close to see what there was. So it was a little bit stressful to be in that with 2 children. And then they're wanting food and drinks and they're getting bored. And I'm like, I just want to look at yarn. And then it was also mostly fingering weight. So there was a couple of sport, a couple of DK. Sorry, my throat's getting dry now. There wasn't much sweater quantity anything. So if you wanted to do a sweater or a fade set, it was actually really hard to find. This one, I got this from Miss Nitsky. Sarah got a purple from her as well, and it ended up beautifully, so I'm excited to make this sweater. But it really was kind of trying to figure out how it works as you go. Yeah, it was really fun, and I am looking forward to the next one. There is one in Warsaw on Saturday that if my husband finishes his assignment in time, I may go to, just by myself, 5 hours on a train there, go to the festival, 5 hours back. But more likely he'll be working his assignment on Saturday and I'll stay home with the kids, or I'll look after the kids. But then in November, we're going to a knitting festival in Wrocław, which is about 5 hours west of here. And that one, Sarah will be coming again, and Kaz, another friend here in Poland, will be coming. And we're not taking the kids. Jordan will look after the kids that day, so that'll be lovely. Yeah, so that'll be coming up in end of November. Like I said, I also went on holidays. We went up to the Baltic Sea. We found amber. It was amazing. We didn't swim. Zechariah did. Ilsa enjoyed paddling. But then Zechariah, my son, got scared of the sand. It was the sound the sand makes. He was absolutely petrified, but only the dry sand. So we'd have to carry him over the dry sand, and then he'd play in the wet sand in the water, and we'd carry him back. And then the last day, he was petrified, and we didn't want to get wet. And he was like, well, then I can't go to the beach. So we prayed that we wouldn't hear the sound, or if the sound was still there, Zechariah wouldn't hear it. And he came out and he walked on the sand. He said, Mummy, God took the sound away. And that was it. And he played on the sand and he was quite happy. And he didn't worry about not getting in the water because he could play on the sand. So that was a special end to the trip. We went into hell for a day, went to the Folkarium, which is seals. Folk is seals in Polish. And it's, like a place where they save seals, look after them, and we went to a feeding. And so the seals were doing some tricks to get food. It was very cute. And one of them jumped up right next to my son, or next to me and my son. And it was just like, whoa, that is a big seal when it's right next to you. So that was good. Sarah was there for the whole holiday. Rosie went home didn't go home, went on to her next European stop after the knitting festival. But yeah, it was a really great holiday. I felt relaxed, I felt rested. We didn't go out much. We went to the beach, we went to eat, we stayed home, we cooked. But it was just kind of exactly what we needed. And then, it was nice to have Sarah there that I could chat to about things while we were knitting and watching TV. I did some yarn dyeing with Rosie, my friend from Australia,
We did a fade set for her to make a jumper out of, which I'll put a photo here. It is amazing. First time I've tried doing a fade set, and first time I've tried this way of doing a fade set. Surprise, surprise. But it was so much fun to do, and love the outcome, and I'm gonna have to try making some fade sets of my own. We also made a Poland inspired colorway, and I didn't bring it to show you. I'll show you when I knit it up, but it'll be socks. But I really want to do a series of Poland colorways based on different towns that I've visited, and I will be dyeing them up sometime, so I will keep you posted as I do that. And I also made these ones here. I've got 5 skeins of this, but I'll only show you a couple. I dyed these ones up to make a sweater for me. So it's got some black overlay, blues, greens. I actually, funny story, we'd used all the yellow on the fade set, so I had very, very little yellow left, but I knew I wanted some real green bits in here. And so I had just a tiny little bit of yellow, which I think that may have been one of the parts that had yellow. But I also used some brown, and it made some really great speckles and things as well. So I'm going to have a jumper out of this. It'll be the Birch Pullover, I think it's called, by Andrea Maori of Drearene Knits. And I was going to make it out of my other green, which is very similar, that I also dyed, although the other one is a tonal. So, like you can see, very similar. This is a tonal, and I wanted to make it out of this, but because it's a completely ribbed pullover, even though it's fingering weight, it's going to take 5 skeins, 500 grams. So I only had 4 of these. I usually use 3. I dyed 4, so it would have extra in case I used a pattern that used a bit more, but the Birch pullover says I need 5. So I've now dyed this, a variegated, beautiful one, and I will find a different pattern for my tonal. So anyway, Rosie and I had a lot of fun dyeing yarn. I can't wait to see the sweater she makes with hers. And she's already started the socks with the Poland inspired, or the Rzeszów inspired colorway. So we made 2 skeins. She took 1, I kept 1. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Coming up, I've already spoken about the Polish knitting festivals that I am going to and hopefully will go to. And I mentioned earlier that it's almost a year since we've been in Poland. So we arrived on the 1st of October, which will be this Saturday. Will be 1 year since we arrived in Poland. It's been a crazy year. I have loved it. Really, really glad we moved here. And it's exciting that we're getting to know more people, getting to know more Polish, and I'm understanding more about the knitting dyeing world in Poland. Yeah, following people on Instagram, meeting new people. It's been really nice. My birthday is on Thursday, the 29th. So we had a celebration, combined my birthday 1 year in Poland with someone else's birthday and another person's 1 year in Poland on Sunday. And so that was lovely. We had 2 cakes, lots of food. And there were some other kids there, so our kids had someone to play with. And then on my birthday, I'm going to do a movies and mocktails with optional alcohol night, where onesies are mandatory or highly encouraged. So that's going to be fun. And just as an extra bonus, I bought a onesie because I don't actually have a onesie I just don't have a onesie. Or I didn't. So I bought one, and it said it was meant to be delivered on Friday, which would be a day too late. And so again, I prayed and I said, God, please, I know this is a small thing in the scheme of things, but if it could arrive before Thursday, that would be lovely. Well, it just arrived while I was downstairs charging my phone. I got a delivery, and I have my onesie. So that'll be Thursday night. Lots of fun. I'm going to wrap it up here. That's all from me. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. If you liked this has been, I feel, a little bit crazy and definitely longer than normal, but if you've liked this, if you enjoy it, you want to see more of these projects come to fruition, like and subscribe, and that will help other like-minded people find the podcast so they can join in the fun too. So thanks very much for coming. It's been a delight to spend this time with you, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.